Giannis Antetokounmpo, for the first time in his career, is open to potentially leaving Milwaukee.
We've talked about this before. I think Giannis got to go. He got to go. It's easier for Giannis to leave home than try to rebuild his current home. Now, I also have to say this. Giannis, you're the reason Milwaukee is like this.
There are so many different narratives surrounding Giannis and what teams he could potentially join, since it seems like his stint with the Bucks is coming to a pitiful end. Although it was only 4 years ago, their 2021 championship feels further and further away. Each season the team crumbles apart. For me, I think that their championship window seems almost completely closed, if not fully, unless something drastic happens. And it seems like Giannis' Bucks career is pretty much over in the eyes of everybody, except for Shaq, because he's looking at things a lot differently, and he even went out of his way to give Giannis advice on why he should stay with Milwaukee.
If you had advice, if you could give him, if you could bend his ear a little bit, what would you tell him as he's approaching sort of maybe a crossroads in his career?
I would tell him they're probably throwing in his face bigger market. Doesn't matter. Social media is the market now. You go to LA, that's 50% of your contract goes to Texas. More pressure, more articles, and more stress. You know, he made a name for himself. Being that he's in control of that ship, he should go upstairs and be like, I want to see all the free agents. I want all their phone numbers. I want to talk to them. He should bring people to him. You know, when I was coming up, it was small market. You're too small. You probably need to go to a big market. I took advantage of that. But now every market is the same. Nobody cares what city you're in anymore. This ain't the 90s.
So let me get this straight. Shaq wants Giannis to stay in Milwaukee, but why? Damian Lillard has a torn Achilles and probably won't play next season. The roster isn't good, and Doc Rivers isn't the right coach for this team. Nothing about the Bucks right now seems like a good reason for Giannis to stay. Giannis needs to tune out advice like this from Shaq because it just doesn't make sense. The city a team plays in does matter. I don't know why Shaq thinks social media has made location less important. That's just not true. And if we're being honest, when Shaq played, he went to big market teams. He played for the Lakers, Heat, and Celtics, all well-known franchises in major cities. So it's strange that he's now saying things would be different if he played today. Think about it, the Lakers are in Los Angeles, probably the top city for entertainment. The Heat are in Miami, where there's great weather and beaches. The Celtics are one of the most historic and successful teams in NBA history. Each of these teams and cities had something special to offer. Now ask yourself, what's the big draw of playing in Milwaukee? Whatever answer you come up with, it probably won't be as strong as what LA, Miami, or Boston bring to the table. And that's a real issue here. That's why it seems like most people don't respect Milwaukee as a serious free agent destination.
Do you all agree with Shaq that nobody cares what market you play in anymore?
But ain't nobody going to Milwaukee.
Yeah, ain't nobody going to Milwaukee.
Talking about he need free agents' phone numbers and talk to them personally and all that. They gonna accept the call and
just because of you.
Lightly decline. Like, ain't nobody going to Milwaukee, bro. That's just unfortunate. I just listen.
Can you Milwaukee up and coming?
I don't care what's up and coming about it. People not free dudes that's trying to win something or be something in this NBA. They are not going to Wisconsin, man.
Let me be clear, I've got nothing against Milwaukee or Wisconsin, but Kenyon Martin actually made a good point. There's a reason why small market teams usually have to build through the draft instead of signing big name free agents. Look at the NBA Finals right now, the Indiana Pacers versus the OKC Thunder. Both are small market teams. It's not like the Pacers landed a huge free agent. They traded for Sabonis, then later flipped him for Tyrese Halliburton, who became their star. Same with the Thunder. They traded Paul George and ended up with SGA, who's now their franchise player. And let's not forget, the only reason they ever had a star like Kevin Durant was because they drafted him, and even then, he eventually left for a big market team. This just proves that small market teams have to build slowly and smartly, either through the draft like when the Bucks drafted Giannis, or through long-term trades that pay off later, like OKC trading PG. That move probably hurt at the time, but looking back now, they clearly won that trade. That's all I'm saying. There's a real difference between how big market and small market teams operate. Big market teams attract stars with their location and lifestyle. Small market teams have to grow their talent from within, and sometimes they even get pressured into trading their stars, like when the Pelicans were basically forced to send Anthony Davis to the Lakers. That's just how it goes. Even in 2025, small market teams are still at a disadvantage. That's why it's annoying that Shaq is trying to boil down this whole problem to Giannis just isn't calling up or trying to talk talk people into joining the Bucks. That statement just isn't true. He's tried and it hasn't worked, and I'm glad he got called out for it.
Just told him, Giannis, you need to call these guys.
So you think Shaq had to tell him that?
Yeah.
That's what we talking about. We talking about the clip.
But do you think Shaq had to tell him that? You don't think he's reached out
He
to
ain't
guys
never
before?
had to. We won a championship with a core group of guys I grew with. We ain't never been in this position before. Now we in this position.
So
I gotta call around now.
Okay, so I realize this clip probably needs some more context. So the guy on the left wearing what looks to be an Indiana Fever jersey's name is Rashad McCants, and he played in the NBA actually. Now, the dude wearing pink also played in the NBA, and his name is Kenyon Martin. Now, for whatever reason, Rashad is under the impression that Giannis has yet to call anybody and ask for another star to join his team, and that Shaq is the first person to introduce the recruiting idea to Giannis. Now, my opinion kind of aligns with Kenyon Martin, where I think there's no way that Giannis hasn't reached out for help. He definitely has, and despite what Rashad says, he has a reason to reach out before this year's playoffs exit, because when they got eliminated by the Pacers, that marked the third time in a row that they had been eliminated in the first round. The signs have always been there, y'all. What I don't understand is Rashad McCants has played in the NBA, so him of all people should understand that NBA players, they can and will reach out to other players to try to team up. And I don't think it's that players don't want to be on the same team as Giannis. What I think the issue is that they'd rather be on a different team with Giannis. They're really not trying to be in a Bucks uniform. Yet, Shaq still keeps pushing the idea that what team Giannis is on doesn't affect which players are willing to join forces with him. Yet, even in Shaq's own career, he team hopped, and on a lot of the franchises he was a part of, they were big market teams.
Shaquille O'Neal is expected to announce that he has signed a 7-year, $120 million contract to join the L.A. Lakers.
Major headline around the league tonight, the Los Angeles Lakers and Miami Heat have agreed to a trade that will send Shaquille O'Neal, one of the greatest big men of all time, to sunny South Florida.
Shaquille O'Neal is on the move again, signing with the Boston Celtics for 2 years and about $3 million.
Much later.
Nobody cares what city you're in anymore. This ain't the 90s. Nobody cares what city you're in anymore.
You are lying through your teeth, you little demon.
Shaq claims that stars don't care if it's a big market or a small market when they're trying to figure out what team they want to join just because it isn't the 90s anymore. Funny enough, he was still chasing the big lights of a big market team in the 2000s. 2004 it was the Heat, 2010 it was the Celtics. So explain to me again how market size doesn't matter anymore? Obviously, Shaq wanted to maybe get another championship, so we had to try to go to some, bigger teams so we could try to get that done. And a small market team couldn't do that. And Shaq, it's funny that you talk about wanting to have Giannis stay on such a smaller market team when you left the Magic for the bright lights of LA because you couldn't get it done with the team you were drafted on.
You're what the French call les incompétents.
No hate to Shaq, but Giannis was actually able to win a chip with the team he was drafted on, so I don't think there's any pressure that he has to stay with one team for his whole career. Plus, bigger markets have their advantages, and Stephen A. Smith gave a perfect example of how the brighter lights can elevate a player.
As phenomenal and great as Jalen Brunson has been over the last 3 years in New York, there is no doubt that he would not be as appreciated and as conspicuous in the mind's eye of basketball fans everywhere had it not been for him being in the New York market. I think if he was in a smaller market doing the same thing, I don't think the allure attached to Jalen Brunson would exist there.
Great example there for Shaq. Jalen Brunson was able to turn his career around because of the New York Knicks. So yes, there was a lot of pressure on Brunson, and pressure is something that Shaq thinks is a bad thing about being in a big market, which is totally fair. But without that pressure, there wouldn't be as much attention on Brunson, which would allow him to grow the brand he has right now. If he stayed in Dallas, let's say he even ended up evolving into a similar player, he wouldn't have nearly the same amount of popularity because bigger markets can help you become something. And sure, not having Luka on the ball as much helped, but I still think being a Knick overall helped his career, and it could help Giannis too. I'm not saying he has to be a New York Knick or even be in LA, but he should be in a place that has a better track record of signing big name guys than Milwaukee. That's going to put him in the best position to win, because no matter how good you are, players might not be willing to join you if they don't believe in the team as a whole. Watch what Gil has to say about that.
How many people do you think LeBron called to come down to Cleveland before he decided he was going to go to Miami?
None.
You don't think he asked Melo? You don't think he asked Dwayne Wade early? You don't think none of these calls has happened? 1,000% Giannis has called players to try to come there.
If players were lining up to join LeBron at one point, why would they flock to play with Giannis? That's really all I'm saying. Shaq is mistaken if he thinks Giannis hasn't made an effort to recruit players to Milwaukee. I'm sure he has, it just hasn't worked out. Even with Damian Lillard, it's not like Dame chose Milwaukee. He won in Miami, he just ended up with the Bucks. And honestly, that tracks. From a lifestyle perspective, a lot of players would naturally prefer the beaches and energy of Miami over Wisconsin. No disrespect to that area, but it's clear many players think that way. That could be a big reason Giannis has struggled to consistently get a top-tier lineup around him, and the media has done the exact opposite of closing the gap between small and big markets, because all they talk about is the Lakers and the Warriors, and even if it's true that social media has helped close the gap between small and big markets, it clearly just hasn't justified Giannis staying loyal to a franchise that has limited flexibility. He should move on. He said he wanted to play in the Eastern Conference, and there are teams in that conference, like the Knicks or even the Magic, that are better positioned to attract other stars. Orlando might not be for everyone, but it could still be more appealing than Milwaukee. But what do you think? What Eastern Conference team should Giannis go to? Tell me in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.